Hi, everyone, and welcome. So, good morning if you are at the same time zone as I am. So, first of all, let me know if you can hear me okay, because last time that was a problem with sprints. So, I do hope that now audio is okay. So, welcome. Today, I just wanted to do some reading sprints. It's the beginning of the month. I have said yes to too many read alongs, buddy reads, I am participating in Realmathon, so I thought let's start the month off on a good foot and get some reading done. So let me know in the comments also if you are going to read something, what you're going to read, if you are joining a readathon, because there are a lot of readathons happening in April. And if you're doing something else, that's fine as well. We are trying to be productive, but it's Sunday. For me, it's Sunday morning, so we can always do something calm and chill as well. I have my coffee, and my husband went to the bakery, and he thought that he was going to be back soon, but he just came back. So I also have something to eat during the sprints. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be reading at a very fast pace, but at least I'm going to try to read. Okay, well, a lot of people are already joining. Thanks, Derry. Yeah, I'm so happy. It's been a little bit over a year since I've had the channel, and I never thought that I was going to have 1K followers. So that's such a fun discovery. Currently, it's like 1,008 subscribers, so it's barely over that bump, but we're there. And I am going to make a small announcement in the weekly updates today. Yeah, so if you want to maybe get a free book, I highly suggest that you watch that. Tears of Tess. Is that, it doesn't really sound like a fantasy, and I've never heard of it before, but let me know what kind of genre it is. And are you far along? And how are you liking it, of course? That's the most important thing. Hi, everyone. Ooh, Shadow of the Gods. I must say, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Faithful and the Fallen series. It was fine, but it wasn't as dark as I was expecting. But I've heard from a lot of people, even people who didn't really like Malice, that the Shadow of the Gods is amazing. So I've been contemplating if I should give John Gwynne another chance, especially now that the second book is out. And those covers are really cool. Cold Days, is that in the beginning? I think that's pretty far along in the series, right? Aha, some other morning people. Good morning. And Stormfront is the first one in Dresden. I think so. Okay, good to hear that the audio is fine. Last time, when a couple of people told me like audio isn't that good, I thought, okay, we can work with that. Maybe a small echo, but it was just horrible. So it's good to hear that the audio is great. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of these. I'm going to be a little bit picky here, but there's like, I don't know if you can see it, but it's glossy. So there's a lot of sugar on it, and I'm not the biggest fan when it sticks. But I'm not going to complain. I've got free food on a Sunday morning. It's going to be fine. Ooh, Aurelium is that I saw too late that was another very cool readathon as well. I think that you're in a magical school called Aurelium. I saw some other people post their TBRs, and yeah, that looked pretty cool. But I normally don't really participate in readathons, and I already have Realmathon, so and Tome Topple, but Tome Topple is just read a big tome, and most of the books that I have on my TBR are 500 plus pages, so they fit. So I thought, let's start these two, see how I do it, and then maybe in the future I can join more readathons. Wait, is the Magical Readathon another readathon, or is that the same as Aurelium? So many in April. It feels like the season of readathons has started, because then in the summer we always have Medievalathon by Holly Hart's books, and that's one that I always try to participate and then I utterly fail. So we will see if this time it will succeed. Hi, glad that you can join us. We are going to do a couple of sprints. I do plan to really get some reading done, because I've said yes to way too many books, and I need to make progress in some of these. I'm going to read Deadhouse Gates, by the way, the second book in Malazan, Book of the Fallen. So that's the one that I need to make a lot of progress in, because I am joining Steve next week. Next Saturday, we are going to discuss Deadhouse Gates on his channel. and I'm currently at chapter 3. And I got the big ebook that has like all 10 books in one, which is great. But now I don't know the progress that I'm making in that one book because it says you have 8,000 pages left to read, but those are all 10 books. So I want to know how far along I am in Deadhouse Gates, but I'm at chapter 3. So probably not that far. And then if my brain gets completely fried from a lesson, I'm going to switch to Pandora, which is a Greek myth retelling of, well, Pandora, but it is set in the 17th/18th century, like just the turn of the century. And it's a really light read so far. I'm only 50 pages in, so I can switch those two. I think that that's going to be perfect. Oh, okay. Oh, work training. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Hans. I'm starting some work training for R, which is like a script language. I don't know a lot. As you can see, I just had the first lesson last Tuesday, and we now need to make some home assignments. And I think that for the first lesson, I'm fine, and I understand what's happening. But I also know that it's the kind of lesson that if you don't really keep on track, you're going to fall behind. So I need to fit that in somewhere today as well. Good luck with your work training, and I know that you're going to watch a movie soon, so let me know how Sonic 2, I think, how it is. I haven't seen Sonic 1 yet, so. Oh, thanks. It's always so nice when people say this, but I just like to make videos, and it's fun when more and more people are watching. And yeah, a lot of you have always been here since the start, so that's nice. But then seeing some new people tuning in that I haven't seen before, and seeing a lot of new faces is also fun. Whoa. And you're still awake or already awake? Because for Sunday, that's very early. Ooh, Kingdom of Copper. I need to start that series. I've been hearing so many great things, and I have the first book, City of Brass, and I think that I'm going to start it in summer because it feels like a summer read somehow. And I think that Philip over at Philip Chase has recently read City of Brass, and he really enjoyed that one. So it seems like it has a broad appeal, both people who like more fairy tale-esque reads and retellings, and then Philip, who reads very traditional fantasy. Often he also likes it. So that made me very intrigued. That's one of the complaints that I've definitely seen about Dresden, that Harry is a little bit of a sexist, but I have heard that it gets better in later books. I don't know if that's true, but the first book has been written in 2000, so it's been long ago that, well, it's not that long ago, right? 20 years, but at least I have heard that it improves. So maybe that's something that you have to get over. And that first bump of the first couple of books, and then it gets better. Good morning, William. Oh, good afternoon. Yeah. Well, I thought at the morning time, for some people, especially in the US, it's probably going to be pretty early, like in the middle of the night. But for a lot of other people in the world, the morning time in Europe is pretty okay. Ooh, wow. Okay, so I thought that Cold Days was maybe number 10, but 15. You're almost there, Derry. And I don't know if he's publishing a lot of books every, like, is he publishing one a year? Or do you have to wait a couple of years once all of them are published? Ooh, dark romance. That does sound interesting. And since I've never heard of it before, I need to look it up, I think. Yeah, it's not a croissant in my opinion, but they sell it as a croissant, and I'm not going to complain. Yeah, that's why often I don't participate in readathons, because most of the readathons are a way of people to pick their TBR, and I don't really have a problem with picking my TBR. I have a problem with getting to all of them, because this is currently my TBR for the month. This is my TBR of Shame that I've been reading for weeks, like those two books, weeks, months. I've started both of these, I think, in 2021. So, but everything else is new, and I need to finish it this month. So for me, readathons, just to pick your TBR, I don't need that. But readathons where you are just part of the community and where you're in different teams, like Realmathon, that's just very fun. And especially if you have so many prompts that books that were on your TBR, they fit anyway. You are going to get points for those books. And especially with Realmathon, you can choose your realm and you get extra points for the genre that realm gets extra points for. So I chose grimdark because I'm going to read a lot of grimdark books. I think that I have 3 that are actually officially grimdark. And then there are a lot that they said it's dark fantasy and it has some grimdark elements, so you are allowed to count it. Like Deadhouse Gates, the second book in Malazan that I'm reading right now, that counts as grimdark. And then Wall of Storms by Ken Liu, that I'm almost finished with, also counts as grimdark. So I didn't even have to try. And with that readathon, I'm going to really be part of that community, and all those books fit. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. Okay. Yeah, I've heard about that one a couple of times, and it seems like she puts also a lot of work in her readathons. So maybe if this month goes well, I will probably try that one next. See, sometimes I just need the extra push to sit down, read, not sit on my phone. Yes. 780 page, by the way, which, whoa. Well, I shouldn't say too much because the Malazan one is probably close to 1,000, but yeah, those can be daunting, especially if you're just starting and you know how much you still need to read. I don't know if you're going to get a lot of reading done then, Tina, but I salute you. Well, it's also hard because it's online still. So when you have an issue with your computer, it's very difficult to show it to the teacher and try to understand what you need to do to solve it. So the lessons are going quite slow. I do hope that we can do it in person soon because that will help a lot. 6 hours of homework on top of a full-time job is, yeah. Yeah, and reading is the kind of hobby that when your brain is tired, you can't read. When your brain is tired, you can still go for walks or stuff like that, and that can be very energizing. But reading when you have a headache and when you just want to go to bed, yeah, not possible. Hi. Oh, by the way, we are going to start sprints soon. I'm just going to go through the comments now. But let me know how long you want to have a sprint. I do have a very pretty timer here for 30 minutes. But if you want to have longer or shorter, we can definitely do that. Yes, perfect movie when you just want to have something that you can watch without using too much brain power. Sounds perfect. Well, at least I made some progress. To be honest, 3 chapters in, for other books, that's like what, 30 pages? So page 115, I'm pleasantly surprised at that it's almost 1,000 pages. Well, I'm going to try, the book is separated in 4 books. So I'm going to try to get to the end of book 1 today, which I think is a couple more chapters. So I think that then I'm 1/4 into the book, and then I'm going to be pleased with myself. If I get that far before noon, would be perfect. Well, it's, you have R, which is the statistical language, and then you have R Studio, which is the program that uses that language. So we're trying to learn both, and it's for my job. So R you can use, I think, for everything considering statistics, and a lot of, I think, psychologists also use it for their data. But I'm doing single cell RNA sequencing. So basically, we have a lot of cells, and we are going to see what each of these cells are expressing. But those are such big files that you cannot open them in Excel. It's too big. So we need to use R. But then you also need to use and understand the language of R. And when I was setting up this experiment, they told me that they have statistic people to do that so that I didn't need to learn. And then I set up the experiment, and now all of a sudden I need to do it. So yeah, I was very happy that they had this class and that I could join just in time so that at least I have some idea. They have told me that I can learn it on my own, but yeah, I don't think that I will be able to learn that on my own. So I have this class, which is Introduction in R. And then next month, I have another class that I can attend, which is using R for single cell RNA sequencing. So I think if I have those 2 courses, I will at least know what to do with my data. Assassin's Quest is a good one. Like, keep your tissues ready, but it's Robin Hobb. She never fails to just amaze me how good she writes and how emotional invested you are. Same, 10 a.m. best. And I have some the sun is shining, like just not in my eyes, so I'm fine. I hope that it doesn't change. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to have a look and see how many series I'm currently in the middle of, and I'm probably going to make a video of that. But at the same time, I'm afraid to look because just for the first quarter of the year, I'm going to look at my stats, and I haven't finished any series, but I have started quite a few. So it's not going to be a nice look. And I'm probably going to be a little bit stressed out with just the sheer amount of series that I have started. But to be fair, a lot of those are new releases. So I'm basically on track. I could not continue if I want to. So at least there's that. I feel like that's a classic that I should know, but I don't. I know fantasy, and then I know a little bit of sci-fi, and then everything else is blank. Yeah. It's once you know how to use it and you can play around with it a little bit, it's fun. But that learning curve is so steep that yeah. And especially if you can't do that full time. If you also have to work on top of that, it's a lot. Yeah. I used to be a mood reader, but after I accumulated too many books on my TBR, I found it daunting to, well, I'm done with this book, let's pick another one. And then I was sitting in front of my shelves with too many options. So now my mood reading is just pick a bunch of books at the beginning of the month, too many to finish, obviously. And then when I'm done with a book, I have this small selection that I can pick from. And it helps me ease my mind a little bit. Although at the end of the month, I'm always ashamed that I have to say, well, I had 15 books on my TBR and I finished 5. It happens. Yeah, there are just some books that sometimes you have a book that you know I'm going to DNF, and then sometimes you have a book that you still want to continue because you know that it's good. You're just not in the mood for it. And then with Queen of Fire here, which is the third book in the Raven's Shadow trilogy by Anthony Ryan, I'm not enjoying it, but I just want to finish it because I do want to continue with his works. Because I did like the first and the second book in that series. This is the last one. I want to know how it ends. And I still have like 200 pages, so I don't know why this is taking me months to finish. Good morning. Yeah, I'm the other way around. It's like you need to pick hobbies. There are so many things that are fun to do, and you just can't do everything. Because I know, Hans, you also do a lot of art, right? And I've been wanting to get into it, but I don't have any real talent. Like unlike you, Hans, when you share something, it's always so beautiful. But I have zero talent for drawing, and I've been trying to get into it. And lately, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos where they have digital art, but I know that it's going to be a phase, and that in the end, I don't really have time to really invest in it and actually understand what I'm doing. So for now, I just have the reading journal. That's the art that I can continue with, even though I still need to make my April sprints. So I'm not doing that well. But that and reading. And more than that, I just can't cope. I don't have the time. Even though I still want to play video games. And I've been on the hunt for a PS5 for a couple of months now. But then after a while, I thought, when I am I going to play it? I don't have time to play. And I'm very bad at them. Like the last time that I played with a PlayStation was probably a PlayStation 2, where when you're shooting or you're aiming something, it just aims automatically. And now you have to aim yourself. And learning all of that, I'm too bad at that. That's fine. I now have the 30-minute open just to maybe ease into it. And then I do have some 45 um, timers as well. I, I think that is a series that a couple of people have told me that I should give a try because I would probably like it. Okay, a lot of people are saying 30 to 45 minutes. Divergent. I loved the Divergent movie, and I've never really read the book. Same for the Hunger Games. It seems like I just had an entire period in my teens that I wasn't reading, and I missed out on so many iconic books. But have you seen the movie? And is the book very different? Because been contemplating if maybe I should pick up some of those iconic books and give them a try for a reading blog or just for fun, basically, and see if I like them. But if they're just the same as the movies, I don't know if I will be as invested and can keep going. It's the main problem with Lord of the Rings. I've seen the movie so many times that every time I start the books, I feel like I know this already. Why do I need to keep reading? Ah, it's a bummer that you can't sleep, but it's good that you will join us. So happy reading. Yeah, you can see that you spend a lot of time in your art, and it's something that needs to grow, and you need to get better at it. And that's why reading is such an easy hobby because you can basically just jump in, and if you don't do it for a couple of months, that's okay. Yes, we did, and a lot of people were very surprised by that we still have snow because it's already April. But my husband's birthday is April 6th, and he had snow on his birthday for a couple of years. I don't know if it's every year for like the last 5 years, but most of them he had snow on his birthday. So we know that this is pretty common, but a lot of people were very surprised. And I thought that maybe I couldn't go to work on Friday because that's when they said that there was going to be a lot of snow, but it melted immediately. So I could go to work. Yes, it's why I like the reading journal as well because I just stick things into it. I have some washi tape, I have some nice paper, and I just stick it on. I don't need to have any kind of talent. I can just make it pretty like that. I tried drawing in it last year, and yeah, no. Oh, okay, that sounds interesting. Yeah, to be honest, I sometimes have that issue that I go into a book with expectations of like high epic fantasy, and then you start noticing those plot holes. I think that I went into Lingus by Mariana Zapata too deeply as well, and I start picking it apart completely. So I think that I might need to go in with some of these books with other expectations and just have a fun time. True. Like now it's pretty warm because I have some lights on me, but I thought let's dress for spring. But I do have like a blanket right next to me for if I get too cold, I can change because even though it's spring, it seems like the weather is not really moving along. But we have been talking for a while now. Let's do the first sprints. I'm going to see if I can share my other screen, and then we can do some sprints. So let's be honest. It's pretty timer, right? I'm going to put it on now, and then happy reading to all of you. Okay, so the 30 minutes are done. I hope that a lot of you got some reading done. For Malazan, I just finished chapter 3. I thought that I was at the end of chapter 3. Apparently not. I was like 5 pages in. So now I finished it. I don't really know how many pages that are. I think maybe 18, something like that. Actually, quite happy with that because Malazan does read slower than the average book, in my opinion. Yeah, we just started. These were the first sprints, and these were 30 minutes. I think that maybe next we will do some longer ones, 45 maybe, because, like I said, for Malazan, I need to have a long period of time because it takes a while to get into the book. And then once you start reading, actually, now I finished the third chapter like 10 seconds ago. So I was speed reading to the end just to get ready in time for the sprint to end. Well, I think that by now you're already gone. But thanks for joining, of course, and I hope that you really enjoy that movie. 20 pages. That's good. Yes, perfect. Gardens of the Moon. Ooh, I read that one last month or the month before that for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. I was surprised by how I understood most of it. I'm not saying that I understand like the entire story because a lot of it you're not supposed to understand in that first book. But from what everybody was saying about Malazan, like it's getting your PhD in fantasy and stuff like that, I thought that I wasn't going to understand a single thing. And I really enjoyed Gardens of the Moon. I do think that for Deadhouse Gates, I'm only 3 chapters in, but I have already met a new character that I really like. And she has a pretty hard hitting story, and it's very emotional, which is something that I really enjoy in books. So yes, I think that House Gates is going to be a step up from Gardens of the Moon. But have you read everything in Malazan already, and now you're rereading the entire series again, or have you picked up Gardens of the Moon a while ago and now you want to continue with the series, and now you have to reread Gardens of the Moon? Two. I think that most of us have like the same reading speed, and then we have Derry, 87. But it's good to hear that you're enjoying the story, Derry, because this is the first time that you are reading. I don't know how this book is called, number 15 in Dresden Files, or is it a reread for you? A lot of people are getting some reading done. It's perfect. And then again, another outlier, 56 pages. Wow. Yeah, I can imagine that the book reads quickly, apparently. But both you and Derry are reading a Dresden File book. So maybe that's why. Maybe they read fast. That means that it's also a good series probably to read in between other stuff, a great palate cleanser. And for a series that's probably going to be like, what, 25 books, something like that, it's good that you can read them fast and maybe read some other books in between. Unlike something like Malazan or Wheel of Time, where you really need to focus and make that your priority because otherwise you forget important stuff. I think that the Dresden File books read more or less like standalones, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh. Yeah. Well, I must say that for Gardens of the Moon, I was just really happy that so many people told me that it was difficult. Because even though now, if people start the series, I want to tell them like it's probably going to be okay, but it's good going in knowing that it's not going to be a very easy read. But I don't think that it's as difficult as some people say. But of course, I just finished the first book. The world is going to open up even more because now for Deadhouse Gates, we're already at a completely different location. And we have some characters who we know from the first book, but most of them are new. I actually don't really know the name. Fellison, I think. She's the new character that I'm already loving. And I think that I've heard her name being talked about before, and that some people really like her and others absolutely hate her. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm invested. But yeah, I do think that Malazan is one of those series that upon a reread, you're probably going to enjoy it completely differently with all the knowledge that you have from the entire series. Wow, second read through and already at book 15. Going great, Derry. Are you also reading a reread of the Discworld novels? Because I know that you put a lot of that content out on your channel, and I still need to start Discworld. But I think The Color of Magic is one of them that I own, and then The Light Fantastic, which I think both of them are not like often said that you can start with those. It's the first published book slash series in Discworld, but most people say that you should better start with Guards or something like that. But I don't want to buy a new book in that series when I already have to. I just need to try The Color of Magic and probably will like it. Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. I didn't know that, but with, well, 20 plus books in that series, it's understandable that in the end you are going to need some of that background of earlier works. Mhm. I don't think that they would be for me, just because I don't really like urban fantasy that much. I've heard a lot of people selling that story like it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that series. But I was never really invested in that. I think my sister, who's 8 years older than me, absolutely loved that series, and she watched it a lot together with Dawson's Creek. Dawson's Creek, I watched with her, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think that I was too young and was pretty afraid of it. And then afterwards, it feels a bit dated. I think that if you watched the series from the beginning, now it's nostalgia to watch it again. But for me, it just felt really dated, and I don't really like vampires and all that stuff. So I don't think that Dresden would be for me. But yeah, you never know. Yes, indeed. It's I think that in the first book, I really liked all the characters, but Felicin is the first one that I already feel sort of an emotional connection with her because she's trusted into this story, and I just feel for her and what's happening with her right now. Yeah, I do think so. I've heard a couple of people say that, well, Malazan is so different from everything else in fantasy that it doesn't really matter if you've read fantasy before or not. But I don't really agree with that. I wouldn't recommend Malazan as your first big fantasy series. I think like go with a duology or a trilogy first and then maybe get into Malazan. But it's true that it's not really like anything else that I've read before. That's right. Yes. I'm going to be very interested to hear your thoughts on that because I think that that's also your first Discworld novel, Kitty. I'm not quite sure, but they are so short of a book that I always keep thinking I'm not going to put them on my TBR because if I have an open spot, I can always squeeze them in. But I already put too many books on my TBR, so I never have an open spot. So I think that I just need to put them in. It's the same for novellas. I have like a bunch of novellas on my shelves there, and I never put them on my TBR. I always think those are the ones that I can squeeze in just when I'm in the mood, but then I never do it. So I have a couple of those that have been eyeing me for a while now. Okay. Yeah, the Hogfather is one of those that they say you should read around Christmas time because it's about Santa Claus, I think. There's one that's about Santa Claus and it has like the Santa Claus cover. So maybe in the winter period I should look at it. Yeah, those are the two that I own though. The Light Fantastic and then the Color of Magic. And I think that Color of Magic is one and Light Fantastic is number two. I got that one for free from a friend of mine. So I was like, I don't ask questions. Thank you very much. Uh-huh. Is that the one that he wrote together with Neil Gaiman? I don't know. There's like one where I see Terry Pratchett's name and then Neil Gaiman together. And I still need to try Neil Gaiman as well. It's one of those authors that I've been wanting to read for such a long time and then I never do. And I actually think that I might start with his Norse mythology collection because I love Norse mythology retellings. There are not that many out there, but the ones that I have picked up, I absolutely love. And I think I want to read more the original myths, a little bit closer to the original, just to understand the retellings better. In brief. First four Discworld books, parody of fantasy. Mm-hmm. So that's also probably a series that you're going to enjoy more if you've read a bit of fantasy so that you understand the jokes maybe. It's for me it's the same with First Law because it takes tropes and then flips them on their head. I think that you would enjoy First Law even though it's like very accessible for everybody even if you're new to fantasy, but I think that people who know the fantasy genre and see what Joe Abercrombie has done with it will probably appreciate that series more. Perfect. I still need to watch your series, Gary. It's all in my watch later list, but I need to have a look at that watch later list because I keep adding videos, and now I still have like people's January TBR in that watch later list. It's an issue. Perfect. I am kind of a seasonal reader, not exactly, but if there's something that fits with the book that I'm reading, I really like that. I had that with the one that I read recently, Alphabet of Thorn, which I think fits spring perfectly. And even though I don't really mind reading a winter book in spring, I mean, I read Winter Night Trilogy in July, it's fun if it fits together. And now with the weather is not perfect, but I do think that it's going to be better in a couple of weeks. And I can put the hammock outside again and then read a book. It's going to be perfect. Yeah, I've heard that a lot. And I don't know, I think that I will like it, but at the same time, I've never really read anything like that. So I don't really know. I'm a little bit on the fence. It's also when books are funny, it either just fits and it works or it doesn't. So it's kind of a hit or miss. That's always true with funny books. But I do like British humor. So somehow I think that it's going to be a little bit similar than that. Okay, Good Omen. That's the one that's written by those two. Formalism. Okay. Well, I will be finishing Deadhouse Gates by, next Saturday, because then we will have that live discussion. And I do know that I definitely need to make work of it, because apparently I'm now at page 115 of 900 plus. So I hope that today I will get to page 250 maybe, which is going to be a lot of reading, but it's Sunday, I can make it work. And then maybe read 100 pages a day, starting tomorrow. Both Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett both of them have written so much that it's definitely a backlog TBR. And with Terry Pratchett, at least I own some of his works. Neil Gaiman, I don't own any of his books yet. And I've been saying for years that I need to buy one and then read that one. But I always have like a basket open on Amazon and Book Depository. And I keep adding books and then I need to like make a selection. It's very stressful. And I do this like every week and then I decide now it's not the time to buy books, and then the week afterwards I repeat it. But Neil Gaiman should be on there, so maybe I should change that for the current state of my basket. Also true, yeah. I think that maybe if I try The Color of Magic and I end up not really feeling it, I just try another one by him, because I know it's not his best works. And if I do like it, I know that it can only be better. Yes, well, I've been wondering if I do have the audiobook, because especially if you've been hearing me talk about this in reading sprints before, I do have an audiobook subscription, and it's like a library subscription. So I can listen to as many books as I want, but at the end of the month, I don't own them. So if I stop the subscription, I don't have any of them. But I don't mind. I don't really need to have the audiobooks. And I think that for Audible, once you put your one credit that you have a month to that audiobook, you own it forever. You can like download it. But I want to listen to multiple, so I don't have a subscription to Audible. I have to that other, which is Storytel. But they don't really have a lot of English books. And a lot of the books that other people can readily have and are available to them, I don't. So I need to look if I have Norse mythology. But I now also downloaded Audible. So maybe if I don't have it with Storytel, I might need to go to Audible. Well, I actually don't know. I think it's not that long. I think this month I will finish the longest book that I have read, which is going to be Way of Kings, which I think is 1,100 pages. But before this, probably Wall of Storms or something like that, which is 900 pages. Most of the books that I read are below 1,000 pages. I'm like looking at my bookshelves now. I don't think that I have any that are above 1,000 pages. Besides then the Stormlight Archive books, and probably I think that some of the Malazan books are 1,000 plus pages, but that's it. So what is your longest book? Because now I'm curious. It's on the list. That's something that I'm probably going to say for a lot of books that I'm talking about. But I have Joanna Harris, not the Gospel of Loki, but one in that same sense. It's the Rune Lords. It's no, it's one of her books. And I think that the Gospel of Loki is like the first book in a duology, but then she has another duology that looks like exactly the same in terms of cover art, and that's the one that I have. But I think that Loki also plays a role in that duology. And it's staring me in the face right now. I have it on my shelves, I know where it is, and I really need to give it a try. I've read The Goddess of Nothing at All and then The Witch's Heart last year, and I really enjoyed those two. And those are like real myth retellings, quite closely to the actual myth, but it focuses on the female character, or a female character that in the original myths you don't really hear a lot about them. So I think The Witch's Heart focuses on Angrboda, who is one of Loki's wives, and then The Witch's Heart focuses on Sigyn, who is another one of Loki's wives. So, and now I do have another one on my on one of my shopping carts, Truth and Other Lies, which is the first book in the Nine Worlds Rising. And I think that this is also a series that focuses on Loki. But I think that the Joanne Harris's books are more, they feature the characters like Loki and Thor, but it's not really a myth retelling. So that intrigues me, or at least that's what I've heard. I'm not quite sure if that's entirely true. Yeah, it's if I hear something about gods play a role in this story, I'm immediately invested. There are actually a couple of books that they don't seem to interest me, and then somebody says, well, yes, there's a big focus on religion, and I'm all here for it. So yeah, normally I don't really like fantasy that's set in our world, especially not if it's more modern. But if it's about gods, I don't really know, because that's also the case for the one that I'm not reading at the moment, but that I have started, like Pandora. So it's set in 1799/1800. So it's usually that's too modern for me, and I'm not going to enjoy it. But somehow I have memories of The Mummy, like the movie The Mummy, where you have people who are going to explore Egypt, and then these old forces are awakened. And I'm only I'm 50 pages in. So it's not that much, and I have no idea why I'm thinking this, but I think that this might be similar. And that's something that I like. So if American Gods is similar, where like old gods are awakening and they're walking in our world, yeah, maybe I will like that. There's too many books that I might like and that I definitely need to give a try. Ooh, yes, love that. I come from a Christian family, so my mom knows a lot about the pagan winter tradition and how those evolved into Christmas. And she has told me all about it, but somehow I forgot most of it. But I do find that very interesting how, old pagan traditions were used and then they just used the same date to help the transition. And yeah, so I didn't know that. I always, when I think about Terry Pratchett, I think that it's funny, but I always forget that a lot of people also tell me that the books are pretty deep. Yeah, I have too many TV shows that I need to catch up to. We have one in Belgium, and well, it's probably one that you have in each country, but here it's called The Mole, and you have, I think, 12 people that they start with, just normal people that can apply, and they all need to do like different tests and goals, like group exercises together every week. I think that now they are in Italy, and one of them is a traitor, and they don't know who. And at the end of every week, they need to like fill in a form who they think the traitor is, and then one person goes out. And that's what I'm watching right now. I think it's 2 hours every week, so it's every Sunday today, and that's the only TV time that I'm having at the moment. And I do want to watch the new season of Peaky Blinders, but I don't think that it's on Netflix in Belgium yet, so I have some time. But I have so many TV shows that I have like a list that someday, if I have time, I'm going to watch more TV. Well, I think that Witches is probably one that I am going to like quite a lot as well. I think because I know that a lot of people like the guard books most of all, but I think that maybe it's going to be too much action for me. And that well, if it's based in fairy tales, I'm sold. This happens every time. I'm starting sprints to get books off my TBR and actually read, and then people recommend so many amazing books that I want to get them, and my TBR just gets bigger and bigger. But yes, Norse mythology is probably the one that I'm going to start for Neil Gaiman, just because I know that I will love it. But it seems like most of his books people really enjoy. I think that The Ocean at the End of the Lane is one of his books, and that's the only one so far that I've seen some mixed reviews about. I think that people find it too slow, which I don't mind because I love slow books. But everything else, I just see universal praise. I don't think that people will very easily get over that number, 2,000 pages. That's like you have 10-book long series that do not reach 2,000 pages. But to be honest, like I know that it's not about a number, so it doesn't really matter if a book is long or short. It's just you read and you continue the story, and if you enjoy it, the longer the better. But somehow I do like my books to most of the time be at the very max 900 pages. I think if it's longer, I start thinking, does it need to be this long? Couldn't it have been edited better? Or couldn't you have made it a duology or something like that? Because if I'm too long into a certain world, I start noticing that, like, we've been here for a while now. So yeah, 2,000 pages, I would probably have an issue with being so long in that same world. But I have a feeling that we've been talking quite a bit already. So would everybody be okay with 45-minute sprints? I'm going to see if I have a pretty spring team sprint for 45 minutes, a timer. I have a couple. Which one do I like most? Okay, I have one. So if everybody is okay with the 45-minute sprints, we can do that. And hopefully, I might be able to finish another chapter of Melasm. So then I'm done with chapter 4. Okay, so then I'm going to start the sprint, and happy reading. Hi everyone. So, a long sprint done. How did everybody do? I finished chapter 4, quite happy with that. I think that was 24 pages on ebook, so I don't know how long the physical copy. And I'm now in chapter 5, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the last chapter for book 1 in this second book. So, quite happy with that. I do think that that means that I will be able to finish that last chapter of the first book. That's actually my goal for today. Then, of course, I do wish to read a little bit more this evening, just because I do need to finish this by the end of next week. So, okay, it seems like you made a lot of progress. And those 10 last pages and then the sprint is done. That's the worst. Like, I love sprints because it really gives me focus to keep reading, not check my cell phone in between, and get in the zone. But when then the sprint is done and you're just at a really intense moment in the book or just before the end, yeah, that's not that fun. And how did everybody else do? I also had a question which might seem quite random, but I just thought about it. How are all of you with rereads? Because I normally don't reread, but I was thinking about my TBR for 2022 and then the TBR that I already have for 2023. And in 2023, I'm doing a lot of rereads, which I normally never do. I think that there's like one book that I reread on an annual basis, which is annual. I read it like 5 times a year, so monthly basis almost. And that's my favorite book of all time, so Daughter of the Forest. But other than that, I never reread. So I'm a little bit anxious to start rereads in 2023. I have quite a lot planned. Do all of you reread, or do you just read a lot of new books? Also at the end of book 1. Great. I actually don't know where that is in Gardens of the Moon, even though I just read it. But, well, upon a reread, I'm guessing that you're not really that... what was I trying to say? Well, I guess that you know what's going on. Unlike me, I think that at chapter 4 of Garden of the Moon, I was really intrigued and I liked what I was reading, but I didn't really know where it was going at that point. Great. I feel like most of us have like the same reading speed, like 20, 35 pages. 35 is already on the higher end. And then we have Derry, 70 pages. and 80, 83. Ooh, only 50 pages left. Yes, then you will definitely finish it today if that's your reading speed for this book. 2 chapters. Well, I only read 1 chapter, so I did take a small break just to get food because apparently we had like I don't really know how you call it, but it's also a sort of pastry, and you have like a little bit of meat in between. And then what kind of... This is what I have left. Apparently my husband put it in the oven. So he texted me like, it's ready, you can go and get it. So I took a break just to get that and then eat while I was reading. Yeah, it's because of you, Derry, that I was starting to think like I should reread some books. Because in 2023, I am going to reread A Song of Ice and Fire, which has been 10 years at this point. And I keep saying like it's my favorite series of all time. But we also know that reading tastes might change. And it's been 10 years, maybe even longer, because I do think that this was before I met my husband. And I have known my husband for 11 years at this point. So yeah, it's been a long while. And I just want to see how I like it. But I also know that I will love it somehow. And I'm just very excited to get back into that world. And also for A Song of Ice and Fire, it's been so long that I know the big plot lines and what's happening, but all of the small things in the books, I think will be almost as new to me. I do think that that's a good way to get over a slump. When I'm in a reading slump now, I try to pick up a very short book or an easy book, usually a standalone, like not a continuation of a series, because usually those books are pretty dense. But a reread would be a good option. I'm just slightly afraid of it because, like I said, something where I have seen the movie, then I have a very hard time reading that book because I know the story. And I think that might be a little bit similar for rereads. So maybe some time need to have passed for me, but I do want to give it a try. Ooh, really in the beginning. How are you liking it so far? Oh, I can see your answer already. Interesting. Have you read Faithful and Fallen by him? And did you like that one? Because I'm still going back and forth if I need to give the Shadow of the Gods a try. Reads are great for yeah, true. And I do really think that when I reread A Song of Ice and Fire, I'm going to love it. And I've only read those 5 books and then 2 in the A World of Ice and Fire. I think the novellas with Duncan and Egg. I read 2 of those, but I think that there are 4 in total. And then we have the book that's all about the Targaryens that I still need to read. So I do have some new books in that world that I need to discover, but I want to reread the main series first. Yeah, well, I never do that, but then sometimes I have a hard time getting into a sequel because it's been so long and I don't really remember what happened. So sometimes I skim read them. Or I try to look up a spoiler-filled review for the previous book, so I get just familiar with the world again. And then sometimes I can't find a spoiler-filled review, and I keep thinking, why don't people make them? But I don't make them myself, so I'm part of the problem. Yes. Oh, fun. Yeah, I think I'm going to love George because I love grimdark, and most of the time these are people that you, well, can still root for. They are morally gray, but they are sometimes trying to do the right thing, or they are just interesting in another sense. But I think that York is going to be just very dark, but in a way that's just entertaining to read about, if that makes sense. I don't think that the story in itself is going to be very dark. I think that on the grimdark scale, it's like mid grimdark maybe, but that York as a character is going to be dark. And I've heard that you do get to know some of his background. And I think when I read that sample a couple of years ago, I already knew some of the Torn aspect, but not everything. But I'm very excited to read that one. And I do have the audiobook for the entire trilogy. That's one that I do have on Storytel. So I am going to listen to the audiobook if the narrator is any good. And otherwise, I will have to switch. Well, Amy, that's another one that I have on my reread list. I know that I still need to read what I can't count 6 books. I still need to read 6 books in the Realm of the Outer Links. I think I have 3 more in the Rainwild Chronicles and then the last trilogy. But I have a feeling that I will finish it in 2022, and then I will immediately want to reread the Farseer trilogy because I now have those Folio Society editions. And I love good artwork, so I do think that I will read it from those editions. So yes, Realm of the Elder Links will be a reread. I think then for sure A Song of Ice and Fire, but I might want to reread the Kingkiller Chronicles as well, because that's also been 10 years, and it's also one of my favorite series of all time. And I haven't read a slow, silent something for slower guards, that novella that Patrick Rothfuss also wrote. So I want to read the first 2 in its trilogy and then that novella. And I know that both The Song of Ice and Fire and the Kingkiller Chronicles have not been finished and probably will never be. I don't really care if I enjoy the books that have come out so far. I'm happy to reread those. Yeah, I know that I think Alex and Lena and Jimmy are rereading the series, and I was just too late to jump on that train. But at the other hand, I don't think that I would have had time in 2022 with every other series that I already have on my TBR. But I've been watching their spoiler-filled discussions, and it's a lot of fun being back in that world and hearing other people be very enthusiastic and talking about it. So I think that that's what spurred me most of all, that I need to reread them myself. Yeah, same. I always think that I should give rereading a try, and then I never prioritize it. I am going to reread the Seven Waters series because, like I said, Daughter of the Forest, I reread time and time again, and that's the first book in that series. But then I always stop, and I never read Son of the Shadows and Childhood Prophecy again. But I am doing that right now. I'm actually going to read Son of the Shadows this month, even though I didn't include it in my TBR because I never think of rereads as actual reads, and I didn't think about it that I need to read it because we do have a live show for that planned the beginning of May, I think. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I know I love that series. 2,000 books, yeah. Well, you might need to prioritize reading those new books, yes. I do I have gotten better at DNFing books. Just because usually when I don't like a book and I keep reading it, it puts me into a massive slump. And I've come to think about DNFing differently, like it's on pause. And if I never pick it up again, then it will be on pause forever. And then some books I just know that I'm not liking and I have a good feeling about DNFing them. But like these two, I don't know. I really don't know if I'm going to continue with them. They will be on pause for at least a couple more months, I'm afraid. And I'm a little bit ashamed to say that because these are not like the worst books ever. But yeah, I just want to read other books more at this point. And I have so many unread books like you on my shelves that you just need to prioritize sometimes. Yeah. Well, if you're a fantasy fan, you have so many series that you start one new series and all of a sudden you have 10 plus books on your TBR just to finish that series. So then rereading is not as easy as when you are into a genre that has a lot of standalones, I imagine. Because then rereading isn't a big commitment. But rereading a series like you're rereading Malazan, that's a commitment of years, probably. It's it's a completely different experience because those are so short and in comparison with the full length A Song of Ice and Fire, but I really love them. It's fun going back in time and seeing part of the history that you see in A Song of Ice and Fire, but then when it's happening. But it's been so long ago that I just know those two names and that's it. Okay, yeah. So you're a big John Green fan. I used to be like that. And then I started DNFing, and now I do want to make sure that I don't DNF too much. But I think at this point, we're already in April, and I DNF'd one book. So that's okay. I'm happy with that number. Yes. It feels like a lot of people are rereading A Song of Ice and Fire. I know that I'm rereading it together with Joanna over at Joanna Sousa, and then Joanna with an H in between. So both booktubers, and I've heard that they were rereading it. So I maybe have invited myself to the conversation because I just love having conversations about books. And when people are rereading it, you know that they love it. And that's the best way to talk about books with everybody who's loving it and gushing over a book. That's a lot of fun. Or everybody hating a book. That's fun as well from time to time, but usually when I hate a book, I don't finish it. So I can't really talk about it. Yeah, the Fire and Blood one I will not be able to watch because I haven't read it yet. But I have seen their full-length discussions of the books of the main series. Well, I have the first two books. I still need to buy the third one, but I was confident enough that I was going to really like it to just buy those first two. I think that Mark Lawrence is going to be an author that I'm just going to like everything that he puts out, I think. And I know that that's a bold claim before I have even finished one of his books, but it's just the kind of author and the kind of stories that I enjoy. How many times have you read Realm of the Elderlings at this point, Terry? I think that maybe A Song of Ice and Fire, when I was reading them for the first time, I think that I might have reread them because that was a point when I was still a student, so I didn't really buy a lot of books. So if I wanted to read a book, chances were pretty high that I had to pick one that I had already read just from my shelves. So I think that at least the first one, Game of Thrones, I think I've read maybe once or twice after my original read. Okay. Well, I'm very curious. Grimdark level 4 out of 5. Oh, it's pretty high. I must say that even though I really love Grimdark, there are still so many books that I need to read in that genre. So I'm happy that at this point, I think for this month, I have 3 books that are considered Grimdark on the list. And I definitely want to prioritize it more. I have like 2 settings, fairy tale retellings or Grimdark. But yeah, Mark Lawrence is an author. And then Michael R. Fletcher, I've read his Manifest Delusions. So the 2 books that are currently out, but I definitely want to read some of his other works as well. think that he has a new release. I think the third book in his trilogy. Blackstone Heart is the first one, but I haven't read any of those. So if that's a trilogy and it's finished, I might give that one a try soon as well. Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people like, yeah, in that novella you see more about, I can't even remember her name, but well, and it would be a spoiler talking about it, right? But you know more about her and she's like so precious, but I barely remember her. So I really want to read the main books first. Plus, a lot of people have told me, like, yeah, okay, Name of the Wind is amazing, but Wise Man's Fear isn't worth anything. And I just remember reading both of those and really enjoying them. But now I'm starting to think maybe I should definitely reread them and see if, now that I've read more fantasy, if the Wise Man's Fear is really a step down, as most people are saying. Yeah, well, it's it's sad, but a good thing is that only two books are out at the moment, so you will definitely catch up, Amy. It's not like the author is going to write faster than you read. But he came out with a prologue of the third book, so I mean, there's still hope at this point. Yeah, that's one of the things that sometimes I'm a little bit scared for rereading because I have such fond memories of some of the books that I've read a long time ago. And I don't know if that will remain the same. The only books that I have reread a lot as well, now that I come to think about it, are Mornings in Janine and the one with from Colette Hussaini, which are more contemporary slash slight historical fiction, because especially Mornings in Janine starts at 1950s in yeah, forgot, but those are very hard hitting, and those are ones that I have reread quite a bit of times, and I always wake up my husband because I keep reading into the night, and then they're so hard hitting that I start crying. So, and I'm a very loud sniffler, so my husband always wakes up with me like with a book in my hand and crying my eyes out. Those are books that I enjoy rereading, even though I know that it will hurt my heart. Only the inept ones. Yeah, same. I have like a couple of books on pause, and we will see if I ever pick them up. But for now, I haven't given them the DNF mark yet. 21 times. At this point, you know some of them by heart, probably. But yeah, I know that you've been a big fan of the series, like when they were still being published. And I was kind of surprised that the last book in the Fits and the Fool series isn't that old. I think that it's been published, what, 4, 5 years ago, maybe? And in my head, this is a series of 20 plus years old. But of course, the first book's off, and it takes quite a bit of time to finish up the 16 book long series. Yes, definitely. I do know that Jose, I just thought about this, Jose from Amazing Worlds, he has read the first 3 trilogies, and he was asking me if I wanted to talk about it over on his channel, and of course I want to, but I have told him, like, we need to see who else wants to talk about them. And I immediately thought about you, Derry, because I know if there is a chance that somebody is going to gush about the Realm of the Elderlings, you're going to want to be present. Yeah, it's with Wheel of Time, it's not like it's a bad series per se. It's just that for me, it's not good enough to invest that much time in. With so many books coming out, so many backlist books of like 20 plus years old that I haven't gotten the time to get to yet, I don't really think that I want to prioritize Wheel of Time ever. Because I keep saying, well, maybe later on, but new books continue to come out. And I think that my backlist, TBR, will only increase with time. So there's never going to be a point that I want to go back to Wheel of Time. Ooh, okay. Well, I basically put the dogs out because I didn't want them barking around me. And while I was reading, they started barking. So I thought, okay, you go into the garden. And I can definitely see that the sun is shining. But later today, I'm going to my parents' house because my brother is visiting, and they literally live like 5 minutes away. So I am going to take my bike. So if it's nice and sunny outside, that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. Well, it's the same. I used to say I will reread them when Winds of Winter comes out because I used to be the kind of person like if a series is not going to be finished or if there has been a long hiatus, like The Lies of Locke that series has the same issue, and that's why I always put them off. But then after a while, I was thinking these might be amazing books, and I never really mind that much. Like I'm now in the middle of what 15 series, and it's not like I'm running to finish any of those. It's not like I'm annoyed that I'm not picking up the next read. So why would I care so much for a series that's not finished to not pick it up? If all of those books are good, I will probably enjoy it. And like for A Song of Ice and Fire and for The Kingkiller Chronicles, I'm still very happy that I picked those up because reading those were one of the best experiences in my teen years. So yeah, I highly recommend you pick them up, even though Winds of Winter is not released. I also, by the way, have the first Folio Society edition for Game of Thrones, but my birthday is coming up, and I say coming up, it's in June, so it's still a couple of months. But I do think that because my husband gave me the first Folio Society edition, that he will hopefully get me the second one, and then I have a start when I'm rereading. Because I will also reread from those editions. I know that a lot of people don't like rereading from, or reading in general, from special editions because they don't really want to damage the books. But I just want to enjoy them and maximize my enjoyment from them, so I am going to read from them. Yeah, that's that one, or the Doors of Stone one from Patrick Rothfuss. But I think, yeah, A Song of Ice and Fire will be the hype is real. And even everybody who's saying that he's never going to touch them because he doesn't think that the series will end, everybody who has started A Song of Ice and Fire is going to pick up that sixth book. Well, I must say, if you continue, and especially I think if you like Malazan, it's completely different, by the way. But Live Ship Traders is something that a lot of people who like different plot lines, different POVs, I think that a lot of people like Live Ship Traders and maybe slightly more than Farseer. I like the emotional investment, so for me, the Fitz books are, just the best. But Live Ship Traders is really at the same level. And like I said, most people will probably enjoy that more. More things are happening, more POVs. Yeah. I really liked. I think that I liked the second one even more in the Manifest Illusions trilogy than the first one. In the first one, you had a lot of world building, you had the magic system that was super cool. But then in the second one, you got to know the characters more. And even though they are super dark and beyond redemption, yes, that was a pun, I do think that I started to understand them more and more in that second book. And Michael Fletcher actually said that he's going to, well, he's definitely going to finish the trilogy, but it might be a while because he's, well, emotionally invested in these characters and he wants to give all of them a fitting ending. But yeah, when that third one is coming out, I'm going to read it immediately. By the way, is everybody up for one last reading sprint? Because then I will probably have to go to my parents' house. A short one, I have a 20-minute timer, I have a 30-minute timer, and I have a 45-minute timer. So I'm going to go through the comments, and then you can decide short one, medium one, or a long one. Okay, you have a couple of big series ahead of you, so yeah. But Wheel of Time, then Realm of the Elderlings, then A Song of Ice and Fire, perfect schedule. And if you want to, like, I'm not going to say that you have to, but Judith Merlier is a really good author as well. And she has shorter series, so it's easier to get through. Yeah, see, that's pretty recent, 2018. Wow. But yeah, of course, Assassin's Apprentice, it's already 1995. She has been definitely writing at a very stable pace, I feel. Every couple of years, a new book came out. And I think that I've heard that she actually wanted to write more in this world and that she was thinking about something with dragon blood and then viruses. But then, of course, the state of the world happened and it didn't really seem like the best idea to put something like that out if I'm not mistaken, I've heard that. I didn't see her immediately saying that, like directly, but I've heard other people saying that she said that. But I do hope that she gets back to this world. Yeah, I actually tried The Lies of Lacamora, but it was the first audiobook that I ever tried. And it was a difficult one to read on audiobook if you're not like well versed in that format, I suppose. So I had to DNF it because you had, if I'm not mistaken, you have different timelines, and I never knew when they switched in the audiobook. So I do still want to give that one a try now that I know audiobooks better, and I think that it's still available to me. And otherwise, I might want to read it physically. But I think that I will like it better now that, yeah, I now notice the clues when they switch from a POV or from a different time period in an audiobook, but I didn't at the time. Yeah, I just, because I actually also want the illustrated editions of Del Rey, I think, for the Farseer trilogy, because I really like the illustrations in those as well. But I have this one. It's beautiful. I'm going to read from this one, and then we will see. I actually don't really care that much about special editions, but I care about the illustrations. I love that. So if there's like a special edition that doesn't have illustrations, I think that the Subterranean Press ones for the Farseer trilogy, like if they would be available, I would buy them. But they are crazy expensive if you want to buy them used at this point. I really think 1,000+ euros for the trilogy. And I don't think that they have illustrations inside. And yeah, that's the main reason why I buy special editions. um, I don't know. But I am very excited to hopefully one day have George R.R. Martin's conclusion instead of the series conclusion. Because, yeah, I think that a lot of fans weren't really happy with where the series ended. And even though what happened in itself, I don't really mind, it's the journey towards what was happening and so many potholes, so many really exciting things that were built up in previous seasons. And then at the end, it didn't really go anywhere. And I do think that George R.R. Martin will do a better job, even though, yeah, we will see. She has her moments, yeah. Okay. Some 30, some 20. Yeah, I'm also in for a shorter one. So 20 minutes. Let's do some 20-minute sprints. So I'm going to find a nice one. Ah, wait. I'm just going to set it up, but yes, it might not be the best timing to write a book about a pandemic. Even though I have seen some authors on Twitter, I think yesterday I saw a thread where one author really was writing a problematic book, let's say the least. And I think that it was titled The White Plague. I don't know what he was thinking. I thought first that it was an April Fool's joke, which wouldn't have been the best joke. Like it wouldn't have had a lot of tact, but it wasn't. It's real. That's the book that he wrote. So some authors apparently don't really have a problem with that, but yeah, I understand Robin Hobb. Yes, I have a pretty 20-minute one. And I'm always excited when the timer is pretty. Okay, so 20-minute reading sprints. Happy reading, and then I think that we have read a lot and we can be proud of ourselves. Hi, very short reading sprints, but timer is done. I am currently at page 15 of 19 of chapter 5. So I am going to, when this live session is done, just finish up that chapter because I know that then I finished the first big chunk of Deadhouse Gates. But so far, I'm really enjoying it a lot, more than Gardens of the Moon. I've heard from a lot of people that Deadhouse Gates is a step up from Gardens of the Moon, and I thought, well, Gardens of the Moon is already pretty good, but yeah, I can definitely see what they mean just judging from that first couple of chapters. I'm really sold. And I didn't really think that I was going to like Melasson that much because for a long time I've always thought that I'm not into military fantasy, but I think that I've just picked up the wrong ones. Of course, military fantasy is also a pretty big and general term. You have different kinds, but this one I am liking a lot. But yeah, so we only sprinted for 20 minutes. Did some of you make some progress, or was it just chilling? It's currently around noon here. It's just 1 p.m. So maybe some of you have also been eating something. Yes, almost at the end. Are you going to continue with Dresden Files soon? Or do you want to let it linger for a while? I know that you're not the biggest fan, I think, of the first book, but since everybody says that it does improve later on, plus time for breakfast, yeah, it's time. I've already eaten breakfast and lunch at this point, so I'm all set. 16 pages, yes. Already at chapter 9. Wow. Ooh, that's good. For I think that when you're at that 100-page mark, you can already see if you're going to like it or not. Earlier than that, it might just take a time. Especially if it's a fantasy book, it might take some time before you really get invested and have a grasp of what it's going to be about. But around the 100-page mark, you can have an opinion. Ooh, yes. Well, when you're at that point, you just can't stop. You need to keep going. Completely understand, Derry. Yes. Okay. Well, yes. I know that you have a pretty big TBR. I think that at the very least, we are going to read Prince of Thorns together. And then if we have time, also Kushiel's Chosen, right? And now I'm thinking that maybe we have another one as well. Priest of Bones, are you joining us, Amy? I'm not really sure. But I have something in my head that we are going to read 3 books together this month, and I don't really know why. Probably forgetting one. Yes. Definitely read some more. Assassin's Quest is one of those books that not everybody seems to love because most people think that it has some pacing issues, and I can definitely see that the pacing changes throughout the book. But I really enjoyed it. And I think that with the quest and the traveling, it's fitting that it's slower at some instances. So I didn't really mind that. Oh, well, if you have to start working at 4, yeah, that's you have a couple more hours, but still. Blade itself is really good. I liked, I think, the second book in the First Law trilogy most of all, and I think then Blade itself. And then the last Argument of Kings, the third book in the trilogy, it's good, but I had like minor issues with it. But overall, that's just a trilogy that's superb. And I cannot wait until I can finally start the Age of Madness trilogy. I'm going to read Red Country in April. Don't know what to expect, but I know that I'm going to love Age of Madness. I didn't know that they sold Dresden box sets. But yeah, if you have the first 5 books and they're rather short, you can at least read until then and see if it's for you to continue. Okay. Wow, that's pretty soon. But then you definitely want to continue reading, so it has its advantages. Yeah. Good night. And I can definitely see, I think that if I finish this first part now, then I'm going to switch to another book later today because I'm first going to take a break with reading. Okay, yeah. Well, at the very least, that's a good thing. I think that Priest of Bones, this one here, it's a shorter read. I think that Steve read it and loved it last year, and he said it's a pretty quick read. So at least there's that. It's well, very enthusiastic. It's over on my Discord. I think that I have linked it in the description box down below. We're a very small Discord, and we basically just talk in the general fantasy topic thing about everything that we read. So Amy and I, we buddy read Kashil's Dart, not last month, but the month before that. And we also have a very big fan of the series, Susanna, on the Discord. So whenever we pick it up, we just talk there. Prince of Thorns, same. We don't really have a live discussion planned for any of those books, but we just talk about it on Discord. Same. And when you're that invested in Fitz, it's one of those few books where I can literally just read about him living his life, doing nothing really exceptional, but just following him along for the ride, because I just feel so connected to him. And I think that if you start the Tawny Man trilogy, but of course, first you're going to read Life Ship Traders, but if you're going to start Tawny Man trilogy, you have just more of that, more of Fitz. It's amazing. I know what you mean, Derry. Every time somebody is reading something in the realm of the Elderlings that I have already read, I just want to know how they are experiencing everything because, yeah, amazing series. And I cannot imagine what it is for you because you've read it all the way down. And I think that Amy has also read everything, and that fits in the full trilogy. I've heard things. I'm probably going to need to keep my tissues close. First 12. Ooh, that's a lot. 20 for 20 books. Yeah, great deal. Indeed. I think that if you buy them online, it's maybe 20 euros just for one book. So great deal. And if you do end up not liking them too much, but I think that you've already read quite a few of them, right? But if you find a series for 20 euros for 20 books, I would grab them. If you don't like them, you can always sell them again. So we are almost 3 hours that we've been reading together. We've had a long sprint, we've had a medium sprint, we've had a short one. I don't know about you guys, but I am going to leave quite soon, so I'm just going to look at some of the comments, and then I'm going to leave you and wish you a great Sunday. I know that for some of you it's already evening, probably, but others are in the same time zone as me. So if that's the case, a great Sunday, maybe some reading in the afternoon, and yeah, I will definitely see you guys soon. I am so much looking forward to that vlog. Yeah. I think that a couple of people are going to be interested in that, Kitty. Yeah, I think that I'm going to be heartbroken at the end. But then knowing that I can reread the series and experience it all again will definitely help a little bit, but I will be sad when I stop reading and be finished. And I think that that's one of the reasons that I will probably have like a big break between Greymild Chronicles and then Fits in the Fool, because I just don't want it to end. Better for the environment, yeah.